So welcome, if everybody could grab their seat. We are about to start our next panel, which leads into something I'm sure you guys are all interested in, which is a delicious lunch that is brought to you by Chase Sapphire. So we're super excited about you guys bringing in Drogai and UnitedMasters. We're all here to celebrate great creativity. So excited to be here with Chauncey, Stanley, and of course, Hayward. Oh my God, who's just in my ear. It's hot, that's why. So we are here just to have a great conversation about creativity, about the influence of communities and cultures. And I think it's important for you guys to start with the story tell and why it's so important to be an insider on that. And I'm gonna give it to either one of you to kind of start off with the answer to what that means to you. Chauncey, should we start with you and go down, or how should we go?
Start with Stan. He's best dressed today.
He's best dressed. And we're all kind of coordinated, right? We're all kind of in our black and white. So shout out to our coordination here.
How you guys doing? Make some noise, please.
Yeah, make some noise, yes.
Energy.
Yeah.
Hussein, what's up, bro? So how all of this started, right? So my name is Stanley Lumax. I'm the executive director. I work on the Chase Sapphire brand for JP Morgan Chase. And, you know, one of our pillars is dining, right? Like, our whole goal is to create unique experiences for our card members. And from a dining perspective, we were creating a TV commercial campaign, and we wanted to do something unique. We wanted to do something that really stood the test of time in terms of creativity. And we also had the opportunity to be working with Michael B. Jordan. And, you know, one of the secrets in terms of just kind of the evolution of the whole campaign was sitting with, you know, some folks that knew Michael really well and finding things that he was passionate about. And, you know, a gentleman named Chad Easterling, who might be here, he, you know, he gave us some insight. And one of those things was, you should think about using an African chef. And, you know, that immediately, as you could probably tell, my background is African, so I was super excited about the idea of creating a commercial around African culture. And from that perspective, Haywood and his team really just started the creative process and finding different opportunities for us to tell that story.
So you created the opportunity to tell the story with your relationship with Chase Sapphire, but then you were integral in terms of the casting and how it all was pulled together. Tell us more about that process and what it's like, yeah.
Yeah, certainly. Once we knew what type of cuisine we wanted to highlight with our advertising, we made a rubric, you know? So we wanted to have a chef that was already making a name for his or herself, but not necessarily a household name. We wanted someone that's on the rise, on the come up, wanted to provide a platform for their creativity and their career. So that was like the first thing we were looking for. The second thing was camera ready. You know, there's a ton of people who can do the job, but they can't necessarily speak about the job. So that was an essential component that we were looking for. And then that third thing was, do they have a dish that's unique and kind of tells a story all on its own, which our chef, the billionaire chef, Chef Eros, does. For the second...
The billionaire chef.
The billionaire chef.
Okay.
He's on the way. It's not there yet.
Okay, he's on his way to be, okay.
Help.
It's an aspirational cut.
Yeah.
I love that,
Yeah.
right.
He's naming it, you know.
Name and claim it. Okay, that's the last thing I'm gonna say, go.
So the other component, though, was the approach. And we talk a lot about authenticity. We talk a lot about culture as an industry, maybe so much so they're starting to be really loose and vague terms. And so we kind of started this off. I was looking back at my own library, and I was reminded of a book by Hilton Als. It's a collection of essays. It's called White Girls. And in it, he talks about Flannery O'Connor. So if you're not familiar with her, novelist, major works are in the 1950s, 1960s. She's from the South, and she thought, like others of her time, who happened to be white in the South. And she was credited for being able to write black dialogue in an authentic way. That's what people said at the time. So Hilton reviews her work and sheds a new point of view. And what he says is, yes, She was incredible at capturing how black people will speak, but only in front of her. There's a conversation that happens behind closed doors that she could not access. So reminded of that, I wanted to make sure that our spot and our approach allowed for the conversation to genuinely be authentic, to be the conversation we have, no pun intended, at our kitchen table. And that's where the casting, I think, was really crucial, because we had a script. Most people, that's not new news, but our script were beats. It was intentional improv, and we wanted to cast people who could tell their own story in a meaningful and incredible way.
That speaks to a big part of what we call representation, right? There is sort of the front of the appearance, and Gabrielle said before, all skin folk ain't kinfolk, and how you tell a story by not authentically getting behind the roots and hearing that true voice, it makes a difference. So it's great to see that you were able to take it to the next level with capturing the essence of what that actually looks like. Charles, so tell us about, I know there's another key element, and you talked about the beats, or you talked about the sound of it, the music that's a part of this, and everything that encompasses, because music story tells in itself, right? That's a whole other journey. Why was that an important element of this process?
Well, as UnitedMasters, we were brought to this kind of late. I mean, to be honest, they already had something in the can by the time we got briefed in at all. But there is a little bit of a backstory I think is important. And it starts with UnitedMasters had recently opened in Nigeria, and we had gone for this launch in Nigeria. So we're in Lagos, we're hanging out, and we meet Chef Eros. We were actually introduced to Chef Eros, and there's this moment, I think we have some kind of picture of it. We'll put it up in a minute. There's this moment where Chef Eros is at our launch event, and Sarz is on stage, and Sarz's Happiness record is playing. And the record is effectively exactly what it sounds like. It's the anthem of happiness. And we are kind of consecrating our brand new friendship, and we've got this footage of us really enjoying this record. By the time they are sharing with me everything that Haywood just said, there were really two choices. We could take and break a brand new record, or bring a brand new record to the forefront that nobody had ever heard, or we could catch this wave of happiness. And there was this idea that because Chef had already heard it, and we had this moment where it was obviously authentically vibrating with him, that became something we started to kind of push in on. And so we looked at, I don't know, 4 or 5, hey, how many? 4 or 5 different tracks, the same footage over 4 or 5 different tracks, and ultimately Happiness won out. And the record itself is performing on its own, right? So at this point, I think we had launched the record in November, December. It was climbing. It was, tens of millions of spins already. And we were working it really hard. There was a music video out, Ashake's involved, Gunna's involved. And there was an existing momentum where we realized, I think around February, that this record was becoming a part of people's lives, specifically around weddings.
Oh, wow.
And then it's like, oh, you got like that level of vibration. When it shows up in the context of a dinner party, obviously it's gonna work.
And I think, one of the things that's important is, like, we always talk about insight and, being, as we say, outside and seeing the impact of that record during that period of time. The fact that we had access to it, for me, was a no-brainer. There became a point where I was probably obsessed with clearing this record because it just made sense. It didn't make sense to bring in something that didn't have equity. The record already had equity. People knew the record. And I think when we talked about what kind of commercial we wanted to create, one of the things that we said was, I want to create a commercial with music where if I'm in another room and I hear the song come on, I walk into the room to see what's playing. And when I heard Happiness, I knew that was it.
So much to the point, and we should mention this, so much to the point that there was a lot of things that were done in the early days while we were still deciding, but by the time you all really get the shoot together for polished final footage, you were ready to invite Sarz to the table. Talk about that for a minute.
Yeah, so, we also talked about casting, and I think one of the things that we spent a lot of time on was making sure that, again, authenticity was going beyond just hiring actors to talk about jollof rice, right? Like, you know, me personally being of West African descent, like I literally have a African restaurant. Like there are so many different reasons why I was really passionate about this spot. And I also, just knowing the community, I'm like, this isn't a commercial you want to cast actors for, right? Like there are real people in this community that are having this conversation on a regular basis. And let's just bring them to the table. So not only did we bring Sarz in, who represented obviously Afro Beach, which is, you know, huge right now, but the table was full of individuals within the African community that authentically spoke to the subject matter. You know, we had individuals from sport, from music, from fashion, and it was a really wide representation of the culture.
So you mentioned that authenticity and the African inclusion to the space and place. One of the things we often hear about in even this festival is the lack of inclusion, although sometimes the communities are co-opted, but it's not co-opted in the right way. But the representation in the room is important. So you guys did everything from the music to the actors down to the wardrobe. And since you're so beautifully garbed, you know, like, why is that so important, the inclusion of like all of those key elements to it? You've touched on it a little bit, but if you could just dig deeper and from their head to your toe of like what that means.
So, I mean, we even had the opportunity to work with Mobolaji, who is an amazing Nigerian stylist. He was also head of fashion at GQ. And our director, we worked with an Oscar-nominated director, Bradford Young, to bring this to life. And, you know, I think all of those cues are really important because we live in an information age. So when people see something on television, they're going to Shazam the song. They're going to do the background to figure out who's involved. You know, like even this morning when you guys posted that this was happening, you know, I went through the comments and someone said, wow, this is about West Africa, but there's no West Africans on the stage. And I had to clap back because I'm West African.
Must, right, exactly. They just don't know what they don't know, right?
But you know, that's the important, and that just shows how invested people are. People will do the research to call BS. Right. So I think, you know, JP Morgan Chase Sapphire, we did a really, you know, good job of making sure that all the, you know, all the I's were dotted and the T's were crossed. And I mean, look.
Yeah, I'm gonna actually alley-oop this for you because I feel like you're kind of skirting the issue of the superlatives of this. So just one sec. Joel Rodriguez, who's sitting down front, he's got this saying, the details matter to the people who matter. And that, whether it's, are there West Africans on the stage or are they having the right conversations? Just talk about how this actually performed, this one piece of content. How did it perform relative to the rest of all of your content? I mean,
yeah,
the comments were crazy.
I think one, you know, quoting Gabrielle again, right? She said, data matters. And I think one of the things that we're most proud of is the fact that this wasn't just a multicultural spot, you know, to fill in time. This is a general market spot. Like you could see this spot on NBA playoffs. You know, you could see it during the PGA Tour, during the Triple Crown. So our, you know, kudos to our media team. I don't know if TA or anyone from media is here, but they did an amazing job of making sure that this showed up in premium locations, right? Because Chase Sapphire is about premium experiences. So it's not about hiding it or putting it in places where we think only one sort of individual is watching. We made it, you know, we put it on the stage for the world to see. But I think to your point, this specific spot is the highest performing, most watched, you know, piece of content on Chase Sapphire's Instagram, which is a huge deal.
Yo, hold on, you heard what he said? Bro, right here, did you hear what he just said? He gonna hit it one more time. Say it again.
He's talking to you.
The Taste of West Africa is the highest viewed, best performing piece of content on Chase Sapphire's Instagram.
That deserves a round of applause. That's amazing. That's outstanding. So, I mean, we led with the numbers, though, but how do you think we can replicate that? And what is your recommendation to other brands to be able to replicate that type of authenticity with, you know, the numbers of proof? Like, how do you think that would take?
Well, part of the authenticity we talked about was the casting, but also how we worked with the cast. Like, no one was feeding them lines. No one was saying, can you say it a little different? Can you hold the card a little more like this? Sorry to say it, in front of my Chase family. But it was genuinely like that's who they are. They were cast for who they are, and we let them be who they are. And we worked with a director who, Bradford Young, who was mentioned earlier, who's amazing, where the camera sat back, almost to the point where you would forget that they were there, and we just kept rolling. And we let the conversation continue, and then we're in the back writing notes so I could see the edit, with the team. Okay, yep, we got that moment, move on. We got that moment, move on. So I think that's a part of the authenticity is so many times, whether it be at an agency or casting, you're hired, but then something happens where you're not allowed to be who you are, or who you are is the person that they hired, but they're like, no, we want you to be more of this, whatever this may be. And you lose the authenticity. And so I'm really proud of the entire team was able to come together in a way that every single person who was a part of it was able to bring their full self to the table.
And we got to give credit to Michael. I mean, award-winning actor,
Michael B. Jordan is who you're talking about, yes.
Generational talent, and he stepped to the side and let the conversation happen. You know what I mean? Like, he literally was the catalyst, but it didn't become about him, which I think was, a testament to his desire to see the film be accurately portrayed as well.
Yeah, that was one of the things that was a part of the intention. And he knew just asking who makes the best jollof would start the conversation. Start the conversation,
fight,
maybe
right?
not end.
Who makes the best jollof? Okay.
But like we knew, and so that's a part of the engagement. That's a part of the metrics. It's understanding the conversations that are happening in culture, and then being able to tap into them in an authentic way.
I would offer the same in terms of if the question is how do we institutionalize this and how do we move the middle, not just move the needle. The music being a big part of that. This opportunity is available for all brands that are trying to do this work, right? So you can find the very next Sarz that actually matches your ideal and what your cast is talking about by fishing in the exact same pools. We've got records from all around the world at different levels of maturity. Right now, there's a number 2 or 3 record out of Chile. Kid was literally, trying to put his rent together 3-4 months ago, and now he's about to cross 1 billion streams. His name is Floyd Minor, and he's out of here. And so every time you can catch one of these moments, whether it be by somebody as significant and notable and conspicuous as a Sarz, or maybe even a young artist who this is their first opportunity. They don't have credits with Beyonce and WizKid. You can always find that. And if you're interested in finding that, ultimately you're going to bump into audiences that are going to cheer you on because you are brokering the thing that they love to a wider and wider audience.
So you guys essentially stepped outside of the normal box in terms of finding talent. You dug deeper to make it more authentic. And I think that's one of the reasons we are proud to have Inkwell Beach, to be able to create new opportunities for access, for information, to just get that thought leadership or show the proof with your numbers, the highest performing Instagram, post, right? That's critical. So if we can storytell about that more and get people more engaged to learn out alternative ways, which ends up being the way to source incredible talent. And I think when you're more inclusive like that, it makes a huge difference. You wanted to show a clip. We wanted to run is it time to run that for us now?
Let's do it.
So if you guys could run the...
I want to see the work? You want to see the spot?
Want to see the work?
Good evening. On the menu, we have the cassava salad, bembere prawns, suya grilled lamb, and the pride of West Africa, jollof rice.
So what jollof rice is the best?
Nigerian jollof is the way to go.
Ghana jollof is the best. I would come home from school and I would smell the jollof that my mom was making.
I know where you are coming from.
My mom was like, don't turn too hard because we like the bottom crisp. But as I got older, I started to appreciate the different versions.
Senegalese, we are the original jollof. You're fighting for second place over there.
We're never going to solve this jollof fight.
We bring the 3 of them together. It's called Unity Jollof Rice.
One people, one jollof.
Immersive dinners with world-class chefs. Chase Sapphire Reserve. Make more of what's yours.
Amazing. What a beautiful piece. Congratulations on that. So we see there was a battle. about which rice was better. I mean,
Yeah, it's a thing.
So was there a resolution, or I heard him say like it was an amalgamation of everything, but there's just one rice. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I mean, we settled on unity, right?
Unity.
The
okay,
idea was
yes.
it was more important for.
No.
It was.
This is Nigeria. She says no, none of that.
It was more important for us to bring the people together than to.
There will not be a jollof rice battle here. Okay.
There will not. Unity Jollof. One people, one jollof.
One people, one jollof. I had the great pleasure of sitting in Chef's private kitchen in Lagos. A couple of people were here with me, and I had the full rollout of this dinner that I had heard about in LA, by the way. I knew there was this Nigerian chef who had this LA kitchen it was impossible to get into, and we got to enjoy it in Lagos. And I think I might have had Unity Jollof. I don't know if that. I don't know if I had that exactly, but I had some great jollof, and it's up there. If you ever get a chance to eat this guy's food, do that.
So
to wit.
It's a win, I agree. And I think people are kind of thinking, like, why are they talking about this jollof rice, and are we going to sample some? It will come, but we just have a closing, I guess, question, unless there's more, we want to hold the people back. But I just want to know, like, the overall reception, we talked a little bit about it, and if you want to delve a little more deeper into it. And then just how are the relationships being built, and how are we moving this forward? Like, maybe what's next for this campaign? Is this a one-hit wonder, or will it be more created like this?
I think, first and foremost, big shout out to the Chase Sapphire team. I see Kristen's in the audience. Katie's in the audience.
Chase Sapphire, raise your hand, say hello. Thank you. Yes.
But, I think the reality is everything we do is based on insight, right? We're trying to create a lifestyle brand that services our card members at a premium level. So whether we're telling an African story, whether we're telling a Latin story, or whatever that might be, we want to make sure that it's authentic. And I think that will be the through line that we continue to work through, whether it be another story like this or a totally different story. I think making sure that we're all connected and realize that we're not just telling a story for a credit card. We're telling stories that are reflections of people's lives, and they're invested in it. So making sure that they are represented, making sure that they see themselves is the importance of the work that we have the opportunity to do.
You know what? I think this is a great opportunity of what it looks like when you create what I call affinity and relationship marketing. Like, this is the essence of that, because when people see this, they may not have a Chase Sapphire card, but they see that you've identified with their community and what's important to the community and the casting and the storytelling. So when they think about going to apply for a card or get a card, I believe that Chase Sapphire will pop to the top of their mind of where they should go, or their card of choice that they should be holding. And I think it's because of the authentic relationship that you guys are building with the customer and the consumer.
Look, I'll offer up to that point about relationship. The one metric we didn't talk about was how it performed for the artist, which is, as you do this work, something you're going to be paying more and more attention to. I'm not going to put all of Sarz's numbers in the street, but the one that I will say that ties right back to what Stanley said the idea was, which is, I want a commercial where if you hear it in the other room, you run in. There's close to 500,000 Shazams just on this record, many of which are attributable to this thing running in the ball game or running in the golf game or what have you. And so when people are discovering, like, you have a discovery chain that starts with, I just heard that, what is that? I got to get a bite of that. And then it lands on, the literal art for this work is the footage that Bradford shot in Spotify. So when you go and you find...
That's never been done before.
That's never been done before. And this is JP Morgan Chase being able to provide the footage for something so culturally resonant that there's that much demand around it. And that loop of everybody being rewarded by the bet, the relationship that we're brokering together, that's what we all want to do. And that's what we're here to be proud about.
Well, I congratulate you and celebrate you for breaking new ground, creating new opportunities for not only the consumer, but the brand. I think it's ingenious, and I think the idea of unity being the foundation of success, that very underpinning that allows the talent, the brand, the acting, the storytelling to rise is the key. So unity first. Chase Sapphire, thank you so much. Chaucer, Haywood, Stanley, this has been an amazing panel. Are we going to talk about, it seems like somebody else has already got a taste of what's happening, but what are we about to experience from a meal standpoint?
So Chef Eros couldn't make it, but
Right.
I think there's a video of him.
Do we have the video of Chef Eros saying a word? Yes. So he could not make it.
He could not make it, but he definitely had his hands in the food that you guys are going to enjoy.
We're going to experience. Yeah, so we'll hear a quick word from Chef Eros.
Dear guests of Inkwell Beach, I am so sorry I'm not there to celebrate the success of A Taste of West Africa with you in person. But in the spirit of welcoming you to Cannes, I've been working with Chef Big Country to create a menu that reflects the diaspora. He'll be making his take on the Unity Jollof Rice, which he'll be serving with suya chicken and kiliwili plantains, and I hope you will enjoy it. As always, it's one people, one jollof.
Thank you guys so much. Stanley, Chaucer, Haywood, Chase Sapphire, thank you so much for this great opportunity, and thank you for the delicious food that's being prepared by Chef James, AKA Big Country. You're welcome.